to introduce my good friend, Vranac, talking about my favorite orchestration tool. Oh my God. Please, give him a warm welcome. Big hand.
We're going to try something different. I usually try to keep the talk serious and sometimes backfire for me because my voice job. So, to start things off, let's try this. Let's get ready to rumble! Welcome to the Ansible talk. I'm Srdjan Vranac. I come from Novi Sad. And what's going on? Oh, nice. And I'm what they call a developer. I possess the three important qualities of a good developer: hubris, laziness, and impatience. Also, I'm a business owner of code for hire. I wrestle with elephants and pythons, and I'm obsessed with process automation. And for the next 20 minutes or so, I will try to tell you a story. So, for start, I need to send you way back into the age of dinosaurs and dial-up modems and connections, when the handshake sound was making more secret drops than Skrillex will ever make. So, in the beginning, the developers wrote the code, and the system administrators deployed the code. And everything was good. Until one day, something very, very dangerous happened. And that is that one of the developers actually got an idea. So, what was that idea? He said, I will write a code that tells the computer how to set itself up. Scary. And because life is short, and universe is a joke, he did it in a shell script. So, what's the problem with this? Actually, there's a lot of problems with this, but this, my friends, is how DevOps is born. It's good. So, what's the problem with this? First, it is this big ass word. I'm going to try to pronounce it. I swear to God, I spent 45 minutes trying to get it right. I'm still not sure. Idempotence. Guys among you that had touch with maths or physics should know this, but at the end of the day, it means that no matter how many times you run an operation, the results should be the same. Okay? Are you ready for me? Cool. Second thing is that shell scripts are not robust. There is too many variations and flavors around to just cover them all, and God knows we are all lazy to do it. And third problem is everybody's freaking rolling their own, because everybody has an opinion that matters more than others. Because we know that tabs over spaces, win over Emacs, Postgres callbacks, or rewrite everything in JavaScript. So after long, long dark ages and many battles, we come to the present, when few of the kingdoms just arose and they are trying to fight over the dominion in the realm of provisioning. At the current time, working with them ranges from using some obscure dialect that is closed or proprietary to some kind of DSL language that you may or may not like. In layman terms, on one hand, you have the incantations to the elder gods, to some of the Lovecraftian horrors, and on the other hand, you have a situation where you're actually considering making a blood sacrifice on a young moon just to get it right. Anybody here using Puppet? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So, automation should not require programming experience. It must be easy. You can say it should be comprehensible. Bad one. I had it. Fast forward to 2012. This is a guy called Michael Dehan who had enough. He wanted to create a tool that he can come back to after 6 months and still know how to use it. Don't have to look into the docs, into his notes or whatever. He just knows how to use it. And for the Excel pull points, he named it after an SF concept of instantaneous superluminal communication. For you guys who don't like reading sci-fi books, if you have seen the other game, that's how they communicated via the ships. So, what is Ansible? Let me try to do this in one breath. It is an automation tool, It's push-based, pull possible, agentless, no agents of the client, only uses SSH, it is scalable, no databases daemons installed after the installation, no root permissions required, also you have sudo available and supports most package managers under the sun. You with me? I don't see enough now. Can you do this? Awesome. So, why use it? Because it is consistent, it is predictable, it is repeatable, and it is easy. Period. What are your requirements for running Ansible? Python 2.7, Python 2.5 plus simple JSON is possible, but we really shouldn't do it. Amongst other things, you need parameter for the SSH, PyYAML, Ginger2 for the templates, of course the SSH daemon, and depending on your module requirements, some additional dependencies. So, how do you install Ansible? Well, you just run pip install Ansible, go drink a coffee, done. So now that we have it running, let's see how it works. The concept is really simple. You have two types of machines. One is called the controller, the others are called the remote. By default, Ansible connects to five concurrent connections to remote machines. In order for Ansible to do this, he needs something that is called an inventory. It can be static or dynamic. We're going to look at static inventory first. Static inventory is basically a text file. If you ever did an ini style file, you know what it is. You define a group, localhost, you add an IP, you add a group of web servers, and you want to have like 10 web servers, you have the pattern matching available as well, 10 to 23. You need to define your database servers, you can do that. You need to have your web servers and DB servers inherit production, you can do that as well. On the other hand, dynamic inventory is something that will help you to deploy on Amazon EC2 instances, on DigitalOcean, on Linode, on Cover, on Google Compute Engine, on God knows what. So let's look at the hello world of Ansible. It's running Ansible localhost -m, which means you want Ansible to run module ping on the localhost, and the result is below this. It's Pong. Gee, surprise. If you need to know the facts about your remote machines, you can run module -m setup, and you will get useful information. If you have OHI or Factor installed on your remote machines, those will be also connected and returned into the with the other data. Now, I can mention modules. Modules are basically commands and tasks that are used by Ansible to interact with the rest of the system. At the point of this writing, there are over 230 modules available, which means that most of the things you need is already there. Somebody has written it. If you need something extra, something strange, and I hope you do, you can also write it yourself using any language that you want, as long as the output to communicate with Ansible is JSON. Now, you know about modules, let's look at running the ad hoc commands. Here's an example. This command wants to copy file resolve conf to a destination on our web server machines called etc resolve conf, and you get the result. Pretty simple so far. Unfortunately, running ad hoc commands would lead you into a situation where you need to start writing them into bash scripts in your backend at the beginning of the story, which you don't want. Thankfully, Ansible has a concept of playbooks. So, playbooks are basically YAML files. So most of us should have a clue how to use them. They declaratively define your OS or application configuration, their collection of tasks that are using modules, and each group of tasks is called a plane. You with me? Do I need to yell again? Okay. So, what are tasks? Tasks at the very essence are commands that Ansible will execute for you on your own system. Their basic outline is name and a command. Name to identify it, and a command that will be executed. In the example about me, we have two tasks. One is called placeholder full, the other one is called placeholder bar, and they will execute full and bar. Let's look at something more realistic. Here is an example of a task that will take a template, some variables, and create a supervisor configuration in it for running some workers. I will not try to explain what it does in detail. I will just ask you if it is human readable and understandable at first sight. How many of you can get this? Very nice. Okay, so let's look at the variables. What are they? They are things that allow us to abstract tasks so they can be reused on multiple machines, multiple times. They can come from inventory, they can come from facts, they can come from playbooks, from special places like host vars, because they are variables that are specific to a particular host, or group vars that are particular to a group of variables. No, a variables for a group. Pardon. So, what do they look like? If you're going to use them in a playbook, you just add a $$ keyword and you then do a dash key value here. In this case, it's greeting hello, and then we have a task, which is a command to echo greeting and inventory name. The result is visible. This is the Ansible output in the terminal, and at one point we have standard out hello localhost. Let's look at something a bit more realistic and look at the variables to configure the before mentioned task for the supervisor. As you can see, it is a YAML file. It is located in host vars production. The name of the variable group is snapshot worker configuration, and now you have a lot of key value-based pairs. File name, command, whatever you want to put into that ini file. Is this clear? You follow me? Okay. Now, we know tasks, we know variables, so now we need to do something with them together. We use the templates. If you have used Jinja, or if you're from PHP world, Twig, or from JavaScript world, that's Mustache, or what's it called? Yeah, handlebars, this should be familiar to you. It's pretty simple. If you need to output the value of the variable, you use the double curly braces. If you have to have a command structure, use the braces and a percent sign. Specifically in this example, we have an iterator for directed value in iteratives that is provided into the variable template, the variables that are provided into the template from within the tasks. Specifically, if the directive is not a name, or the directive is not a file name, and if the value exists, outputted is a key value pair. The result is this. This should be pretty familiar to you if you have seen an ini file for supervisor, but the interesting part here is that green part at the top. It says Ansible managed, and then it says where it came from, by whom, and when. If you have multiple running on our remotes, this is a nice way to know that you can actually track what happened when. Now, nice. Now we have knowledge of tasks, of variables, and templates and playbooks, and you start writing your playbook, and it grows and grows and grows, and suddenly it's a monolith. That every time that somebody has to touch it, sooner or later your development starts to reenact the scene from Space Odyssey about monkeys and the monolith. And it's very interesting to see a couple of times, but sooner or later somebody starts slinging feces and then you go to awkward moments. You don't want to do that. Now, to avoid that, Ansible has thought of roles. What are roles? Well, they're a way to split your playbook down into common chunks. So you break down the monolith and you create your chunks like you would use robots to form logic, to fight provision monsters. You know. How complicated are they? Not really. Each role has a directory within the roles directory that has a name. There are some directories sundry for files, for handlers, for metadata, tasks, etc. Variables, nothing specific, very nicely explained on Ansible docs. What we care is how we're going to use them. Well, in your playbook, you just define roles, and then you start listing them in the order of execution that you want. If this sounds complicated, or you think that roles are some strange concept that nobody can actually write by themselves. Well, we have this place. It's called Ansible Galaxy. Ansible Galaxy is basically an online directory of user-defined roles uploaded for the general public to use. Each of them has a Git repo, has the user comments, feedback, etc., 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 and you can browse them by different variables, whether it is for web servers, DB servers, whatever the category is there. Now, there are two more things that are worth mentioning at this point. One, the asynchronous actions in polling. Now, by default, every task executed in Ansible is blocking, which means that the Ansible will wait for it until it finishes. In some cases, that may be a problem because the SSH connection will time out, etc. So we can use polling by defining two things. One is async, and second is poll value. In the example above, we have a simulated long-running operation, like 15 seconds, and we say that we wait for it 15 seconds and to poll every 5 seconds for the result. That's about it. The second, even better part is debugging. You have two modes of debugging. Actually, two tools to help you debug. One, it's called check mode or dry run. What that will do is simulate execution of your playbook against your remotes without actually changing anything on that. What it will report back is the further. Now, if you use that with the diff parameter, you will also get back a nice level of diff values of what will be changed on the server, and you can see what is going to happen. And then we come to this. As much as I try to avoid this being a pissing contest, you can. I can tell you that there are more smarter people than me that have written a book about it and did a comparison from the DevOps view. I have been exposed to Puppet, so we can talk about comparison to that. And then we come to this part. How many of you are actually asking yourself if I'm selling snake oil or bullshitting you or just awesome? No, this is good. This is really good. The name of the game is memory. Is it good enough? Your memory. At the 12th hour, when you need to deploy something on a remote server, or servers, to make matters worse, are you sure you can remember every step you need to do? Can you? You keep notes, right? Yeah, sure. Right. If, on the other hand, you have one server that is updated every 2 years, we come down to the same thing. Can you really remember what you actually did? Can you reproduce? This is the point of this automation. To make certain that you have a written down process that is repeatable and that is basically independent of what you remember or you should care about. You need to change something in your server, you need to spin up a new one. You don't care, you just execute the playbook. After a few minutes it's done. That's it. You will have an identical environment to the rest of it. That's the point. To take away, this comes down to a little modification of a Jay-Z lyric that goes something along the lines of this. If you're having provisioning problems, I feel bad for you, son. I have 99 problems, but this is one. Get me. By the way, for those that ask questions, I have shirts. So first come, first served basis. Do that. Just
you are talking about provision, but you didn't mention Juju. I know it's only for Ubuntu servers, but it's
no. It's not for Ubuntu servers. It's for any operating system that you support, any Linux-based, FreeBSD, whatever. You just enter a switch. If you have to provide for multiple OSs, you have the events that you, when directive that you say, okay, the operating system is FreeBSD, use this,
Yeah,
or
okay.
etc., etc., etc.
But it's a relatively new feature. It was developed by Ubuntu for Ubuntu. So, why isn't it Juju?
What the hell is that? And why should I care? Really?
Because it's well, like 10 times easier than
10 times easier to deploy on how many servers?
how many you like.
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
10, 20.
How about 100? How about 200? How about the unknown number of them that needs to be spin up on demand? Can Juju handle that without paying a whole crapload of money? Because
Yes.
this can, for free.
I know. I use Ansible and I use Juju. And
Okay.
I choose Juju because
Okay.
it's simpler.
Okay?
Not big. Ansible is great if you have servers like 5 Ubuntu servers, 10 Solaris servers, and so on.
Let me paint you a picture why Ansible is actually usable, probably more than Juju. It's called Vagrant and local development in virtualized environments, where you set up one playbook that actually mimics your production, so every dev in your team has an identical environment. That's where the Ansible shines.
Yeah,
Mimicking the environment as close as possible to production. I'm not certain how Juju can do that with Vagrant or Docker or whatever.
it can.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at it. Oh, sorry.
So I have a question. You said you were exposed to Puppet.
Yes.
So
Scarred for life.
yeah. So to me, I haven't used, but I'm planning to use these provisioning tools.
Okay.
But my experience is that every of those provisioning tools have their naming conventions. So in Chef I have knives. I have
No, nothing. Go agentless. This has nothing. This needs only SSH. That's it.
Okay, but that's what I like about it. So my question is, do you think it's easier to learn Ansible? Because from this presentation, what I saw was a lot of slides with a lot of some custom that looks like Puppet or looks like Chef.
Looks. There is this slight little thing that distinguishes from Puppet, and that is called a known order of execution. After working with 2 years with Puppet, I still have no clue how it determines the order of execution, even when I do the anchoring or requirement. Basically, it comes down to whether I'm going to make a block sacrifice on the young moon or not. That is about the only reliable way to know the execution of Puppet. And that's the problem. You have a DSL language that you need to learn. You will encounter a whole lot of crap that you don't need to know, an overhead, and God forbid you will actually try to do something very complicated like upgrading MySQL from 5.5 to 5.6. You're gonna not have a good time. Really. My personal, not Chef, the Ansible is simpler. It has a cleaner syntax, no crap. You know what's going to happen. You know when it's going to happen, and the output of the Ansible itself is much more helpful than what you get with Puppet. Puppet has a nasty way of buffering out the results, and at a certain time interval, not certain still if it's not amount of memory it's used or the number of seconds it was, it just roars it out in your terminal, and you see things that happen, not as they are happening, as opposed to Ansible, which goes play by play. Something happens, you get the output. Something happens, you get the output, and not have a lag of 10 seconds or so. So it's easier for me. Oh, sure. Next.
Okay.
I'm waiting for you. Go.
Did you try to make your own module, and if we need to
Did
build?
not need it yet.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything weird enough to need it. I mean, 240 modules and rising, seriously.
Yeah, but if you saw, would you use PHP or Python, or do you encourage us to use any?
No clue, depends on the scenario. Really, it is the best answer I can give it. As long as it can output JSON, I'm fine.
So if we cannot find any module that
Yeah, I
that
have to
is-
write my own.
Yeah.
I would have to write my own. The language of preference would be directly dependent on the thing that needs to be done. So if, as you know, very well know, if it's something in the background like CLI or something, I will go with Python. If it's something web-based, I will go with PHP at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Wait for it. Oh, I'm gonna hit you with that. Crap.
This is going to be the last question.
Okay, hello. I represent the Puppet faction here.
Awesome!
And for one, I wanted to chime in on the if you're starting out fresh and you're trying to decide what to do. I think Ansible is probably a very, very good way to get into the scene, because it's very clean and simple. If you can read or write YAML, you can read and write Ansible.
Mm-hmm.
And for my own infrastructure, I also use Ansible sometimes to orchestrate things. Because, as you say, it's relatively easy to predict the order of execution. So that's an absolute plus. But I also have a question, and is there a concept like hero in Ansible?
What's that?
So in Puppet, there's the concept of a data store. It's called hero, when you have all your data.
Oh, you mean like Ansible Vault, where you basically can store all of your sensitive data and password protected. So when you need to share your Ansible configuration tables to everybody else, your sensitive data will be like protected and can be executed. You mean like that?
Let's continue this discussion. Thank you again.